political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
The President of the Republic, Ms. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting devoted to assessing the work of the Commission entrusted with preparing the expected visit of the Pope Leo XIV to Algeria. Prominent Mauritanian journalist Beiba Wild Hadi has stated that Moroccan media outlets are being used to deliberately distort Algeria's image at both regional and international levels. And the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has warned of possible ethnic cleansing in the occupied Gaza Strip and West Bank, citing escalating violence and forced displacement. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail from Radio Algeria International. First in our news, the President of the Republic, Ms. Abdelmajid Tebboune, has chaired a meeting devoted to assessing the work of the Commission tasked with preparing for the expected or the upcoming visit of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV to Algeria. Earlier, Algeria welcomed the content of the communique issued by the authorities of the Vatican City-State announcing the official visit of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV to Algeria at the invitation of the President of the Republic, Ms. Abdelmajid Tebboune. This visit will help strengthen the ties of friendship, trust, and mutual understanding, uniting Algeria to the Vatican and will undoubtedly open up new prospects for cooperation, reflecting their shared conviction of the need to build a world based on peace and the values of dialogue and justice in the face of the various current challenges confronting humanity. Entrusted by the President of the Republic, Ms. Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Prime Minister, Sifi Ghraib, has chaired here in Algiers the installation ceremony of the Governor of the Bank of Algeria, Mr. Mahmoud Lamine Labo. The ceremony took place in the presence of the Minister of Finance, Mr. Abdelkrim Bouzerd, as well as several senior officials and executives of this financial institution. On this occasion, the Prime Minister congratulated the new governor on the confidence placed in him, wishing him success in his duties, and called for joint efforts to boost the banking sector's dynamic and flexibility in support of national strategic projects. Let's listen to Mr. Sifi Ghraib.
يشرفني اليوم وبتعليمات من السيد رئيس الجمهورية.
Under the instructions of the President of the Republic, I have the honor today to oversee the installation of Mr. Lebo Mohamed Amin as the new Governor of the Bank of Algeria. I also wish him every success, prosperity, and sound judgment in this new mission. On behalf of the President of the Republic, I ask all of you to work together to create new dynamic, as the banking sector is a sensitive sector. The phase the country is witnessing through strategic projects that everyone is aware of requires greater flexibility from the banking sector. It also requires the presence and intervention of the banking sector in a way that drives and provides momentum and dynamism in line with what is expected of all of you.
For his part, Mr. Lebo expressed his sincere thanks to the President of the Republic for the confidence placed in him and his gratitude to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for their support during his installation.
تقدموا بالشكر الجزيل للسيد رئيس الجمهورية للثقة الموضوعة في شخصي.
I extend my sincere thanks to the President of the Republic for the confidence placed in my person by appointing me and entrusting me with the duties of Governor of the Bank of Algeria. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to the Prime Minister and the Minister of Finance for all the efforts they made for me during this installation.
Mr. Sifi also called for a team spirit to improve financial system performance and strengthen the economy amid current national and international challenges. Prominent Mauritanian journalist Beiba Wild Al-Mahdi has stated that Moroccan media outlets are being used to deliberately distort Algeria's image at both regional and international levels. Beiba Wild Al-Mahdi said in a press statement that during the 90s, some Moroccan media sought to portray Algeria as isolated and marginalized, despite evidence to the contrary. He added that coverage reflecting Algeria's diplomatic activity often led to pressure and reprimands for journalists. He described Moroccan media as closely tied to political authority and used to promote official agendas, particularly against Algeria, adding that such practices eventually led him to resign from Morocco's media radio in what he called a symbolic stand against misleading media campaigns. Meanwhile, around 40 political trade union and civil society groups in Spain's Basque country have reaffirmed their support for the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination, calling for stronger international backing to end decolonization in Western Sahara. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has warned of possible ethnic cleansing in the occupied Gaza Strip and West Bank, citing escalating violence and forced displacement. The UN says humanitarian aid access remains limited due to high rejection rates by Israeli authorities. Meanwhile, damaged UNRWA facilities continue to shelter thousands of displaced people across the Gaza Strip. This came as UN Secretary General spokesperson Stefan Dujarric says that more than 18,500 wounded and sick people in Gaza, including nearly 4,000 children, urgently need medical evacuation abroad. He warned that crossing restrictions and slow coordination are putting lives at risk as Gaza's health system has nearly collapsed. Hospitals are overwhelmed and facing severe shortages of medicines and fuel, prompting renewed calls for safe corridors and faster medical evacuation for critical cases. The third round of indirect talks between Iran and the United States on the Iranian nuclear issue has begun in Geneva, Switzerland, under mediation of Oman. The first and second round of talks were held earlier in February in the Omani capital, Muscat, and in Geneva. The Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said that an agreement was within reach if diplomacy is prioritized, and added that Iran would resume the talks determined to reach a fair and just agreement as soon as possible. The United States have repeatedly demanded that Iran abandon enrichment, but Tehran continues to assert the peaceful nature of its nuclear program and its right to enrich uranium for civilian purposes. Earlier, the Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian confirmed that his country does not seek to possess nuclear weapons ahead of the start of the third round of indirect nuclear talks with the United States in Geneva. The Iranian news agency Tasnim quoted Pezeshkian as saying that during a meeting that Tehran has repeatedly stated it does not seek to acquire nuclear weapons. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, OCHA, has expressed deep concern over the increasing targeting of civilians as fighting intensifies in northern Darfur state, Western Sudan, amid reports of deaths, injuries, and the displacement of thousands of people. Masoud Sharfi has more details.
The UN office stated in a statement that nearly 2,700 people have been displaced due to attacks targeting the town of Mustariha in the Kabkabia locality of North Darfur in recent days, resulting in the killing of 28 civilians and the injury of 39 others as a result of these attacks, in a preliminary toll reflecting the scale of the security deterioration in the region. OCHA renewed its call on all parties to the conflict to protect civilians and civilian infrastructure and to comply with the provisions of international humanitarian law, and the continued deterioration of the situation on the ground and the widening scope of displacement. Since April 2023, the country has been witnessing an armed conflict between the Sudanese army and the rapid paramilitary support forces, which has led to the killing of thousands and the displacement and uprooting of millions. Meanwhile, the International Organization for Migration, IOM, warned that the survival of more than 1.9 million displaced people in South Sudan is threatened by the insufficient humanitarian funding. The organization warned that the critical lack of funding endangers the life of displaced persons, as humanitarian needs far exceed available resources in South Sudan, the world's youngest state, which has been plagued by internal conflict, poverty, and widespread corruption since 2011, and is now facing both an influx of refugees from neighboring Sudan and the displacement of its own population caused by years of conflict, flooding, and instability. The agency further stated that since the start of the conflict in Sudan in April 2023, more than 1.3 million people have crossed the border to seek refuge in South Sudan, placing immense pressure on border communities as well as on already overstretched public services and fragile infrastructure. Deputy Director General for Operations at the IOM, Yugushi Daniels, warned that South Sudan is bearing an extraordinary burden, and the lack of funding risks risks undermining progress toward durable solutions for millions of people. The IOM indicated that its 2026 response plan is facing a shortfall of $29 million.
To the Democratic Republic of the Congo now, where government forces have been carrying out attacks on multiple fronts against the M23 rebels in the eastern part of the country with the support of drones that struck the armed group near a strategic mining site. According to local and security sources, fighting in eastern DRC has focused near the mining town of Rubaya, which produces 15 to 30% of the world's coltan, as the country, holding at least 60% of global reserves, faces a surge of violence since the M23's resurgence in 2021, including its December offensive on Uvira, while local militias carried out simultaneous attacks in North Kivu's Masisi territory. And finally, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC, has reported that the international trafficking of toxic waste is a rapidly growing form of environmental crime that remains largely invisible. Ms. Archafi details.
The UNODC highlighted in its report that hazardous waste is trafficked worldwide, often hidden or falsely declared, driving pollution and profits for criminal networks, and noted that globalization and stricter rules in developed countries have increased incentives for illegal disposal facilitated by fragmented supply chains that enables fraud. According to the UNODC, the global waste economy already represents hundreds of billions of dollars, with the illegal share amounting to billions each year. The report also notes a structural imbalance, with the most costly waste often exported from the global north to low-income countries, where recycling occurs in unsafe conditions or waste is openly dumped, exposing local populations to toxins. The trade thrives due to low risk and high profits, weak sanctions, and limited inspections, resulting in long-term consequences such as higher cancer and neurological risks, costly cleanups, unfair competition, and setbacks to the circular economy. In response to this phenomenon, experts emphasize that the international response remains fragmented. They call for better harmonization of legislation, strengthened inspections and sanctions, more effective waste traceability, and increased corporate responsibility. The UNODC warns that without coordinated action, the anticipated increase in global waste production could further expand this clandestine market, causing profoundly harmful effects.
And with this, we come to the end of this news bulletin. Time now for weekly programs devoted to the holy month of Ramadan. And I'll meet you again tomorrow for a fresh edition of our news bulletin. Thank you and goodbye for now.